Good evening, and I think I feel more comfortable now saying good evening since it's getting darker earlier. It is September 25th, 2025. It's 5:01, and this is the monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bristol County Water Authority. The next item on the agenda, following call to order, is public input. I see we do have a member of the public here today who I suspect has some comments on or thoughts that you want to express regarding one of our projects.
If that's the agenda item that is up first, I'd be happy to.
What I'm going to do here is when the Properties Committee makes their presentation, and makes their recommendation. Before the board makes any motion, takes any action, I'll ask for comments from you. Okay? And because
That would be on another night? Or
no, that'll be tonight.
Oh.
It's on the agenda later, in a few minutes. So, because it seems kind of disjointed, because you'll probably ask some questions looking for answers. We may have some answers, we may not have some answers. And maybe if you hear some of the recommendations that the Properties Committee has, it may move things along easier. We also have it under executive session, in which you will be able to participate. But I'm going to put you in with right after the presentation by the Properties Committee. So moving ahead into the agenda, and I don't recognize any other members of the public, so we'll move. And the next item on the agenda is minutes. For approval, we have two sets of minutes, one for the board meeting of August 28th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Are there any comments, corrections, changes necessary to the minutes? Hearing none, I ask all those in favor of approving the minutes to say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous for approval. The other set of minutes was from the Properties Committee meeting on 9/11/2025. And did the board get copies of those?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got a copy.
Yeah, okay, just
Yeah.
making sure that.
Last page.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Third, second?
Second.
Any discussion of the Property Committee meeting minutes?
I'm just going to be abstaining since I wasn't there for it.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, and now I'll turn it over to the Executive Director for his monthly report.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Report for September 25th. With respect to the Pawtucket Pipeline project, as you all know, at the last meeting, after much discussion, the board did approve amendment number 3 to the Beta Group. So I've included within my report the letter that was sent to Beta with respect to the approval with the conditions, also their response to that letter. And we also did receive the monthly progress report as requested. If you had a chance to look at the report, if you have any questions as to where things at, it seems, according to the report, they're on track to submit for permitting by the end of various stages for different various portions of the project, but to meet that goal.
I want to emphasize, are there any comments or questions regarding the report from Beta?
I think the report is good. It hits all the items, but it'll be a good baseline to start from to be able to continue to follow the progress. If we use that as a baseline, here's what they said, how are we doing the next month and the next month?
Okay. That's a good comment. Any other comments? I'll make one. And it's not on the monthly progress report. It's a response to our letter the letter that the board reviewed and that Stephen, our director, and myself, the chairman of the board, signed and sent to Nicholas Corbello. And Mr. Corbello responded to our letter. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little self-centered, or maybe it's that I don't feel he addressed the letter of response to the right group. Stephen signed it, I signed it for the board. The board had reviewed the whole letter. The response back from Beta was addressed only to Steve Kutu. He's certainly our representative. But I thought since the chairman representing the board and the director had sent out a letter to him, that he would reply to the people who sent the letter. He didn't do that. And I don't think that's a good way to try to impress sincerity. But in any case, it's my own personal viewpoint. Any other comments on the Beta response letter or the report? Okay, back to you, Stephen.
Okay. One of the items that we had also discussed was with respect to the easement documents, and we did recently receive those from Attorney Keough. And we are compiling all that information, and we'll start approaching the property owners respectively with those documents. One of the properties that we don't have any verbal approval with yet, it's the property owner at 70 Pawtucket Avenue. That's the northern limit of the project in order for us to tunnel under the northern rail crossing requires some use of private property at 70 Pawtucket Avenue. The company there is called Bear Enterprises. It's also part of that complex where Sky Zone is, on Pawtucket Avenue. So we met with the property owner and her representatives earlier this week. We had groups going to go back to their plan to try and make some accommodations for that property owner. So we'll keep you in the loop as to how that goes. We also have a meeting with each province administration next week to talk about the recent contract amendment and also the blending and control station. With respect to the demo of the plant and the new maintenance garage, you all know the Purpose Committee met on September 11th. We further discussion on this item this evening. For the new proposed garage, we had a kickoff meeting with the design team on September 18th, and there will be a design charrette, as they call it, next Thursday and Friday. For the debris removal project, the contractor is actually back on site to wrap up the punch list items and do the seating work. And we're also getting prices for tree planting to be done in October. Power Co-op continues to work on the permitting documents for the Shad Factory pipeline. And with respect to BCWA properties, a binder of all BCWA's properties was presented to the Properties Committee. Director Martin has a book right there in front of them.
I feel like
This information can be used by the Properties Committee as they review the current and future uses of all of our properties going forward. All right, for the lead service line replacement program, I provided an updated chart. The service line inspection program is kind of winding down, but it's been very successful. They've achieved a 40% success rate and effectively removed 148 service lines from the unknown list, which is really good. We submitted our report to the state, all the state offices, as required by the by the Lead Poison Prevention Act. And in addition, reports were sent to the town officials of Barrington, Warren, and Bristol as requested by the board, and those letters are also included in my report. Bond Avenue tank, I was told we were going to get a final report at the end of this week. That's tomorrow. Water purchases, had a tick increase in August compared to last year. Still kind of in line with the prior 5-year average on an ongoing yearly basis. We got the capital improvement project summary, made some adjustments to the board approved funds, both for the Pocket Pipeline Phase 2 design and also the 2024 water main renewal project based on the approvals last week. For personnel and training, we're currently advertising out for a vacant water utility operator position, which we haven't had all summer. Advertising ends sometime towards the end of tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, and we sent 10 employees to Rhode Island Waterworks Operator Training Day at Wright's Farm on September 11th. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions of the director? Mike, anything you want to add?
Not too much else to add. Just to follow up on the lead service lines, as Steve mentioned, we submitted our compliance documents to the states, but we also have to start our compliance notifications to the customers. So over the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending those out to the affected customers that either have unknowns or qualifying lead services, which also include galvanized requiring replacement under state law. So this will be our last effort to try to identify all the unknowns as part of the project with Rhode Island Waterworks. So hopefully this compliance notification generates a little bit more interest and we can get as many of these unknowns as possible. Otherwise, we did, I highlighted one of the repairs we made over here in the intersection of Child Street. This was a considerable effort that unfortunately arose during the valve operations to support our work by Bono and Fogarty out here in Child Street. So this was an instance where a valve from around 1900 that none of these mains were ever touched because they were so critical to the performance of the plant, the direct discharge to the system, so you could never take them offline. So this was the first time really anybody's ever seen these since they were installed. And we had to operate the valve to shut down for this work, and unfortunately the valve broke. There was no real good way to fix it with a valve that old, so we had to replace all that. And then due to that congestion, we couldn't just change the valve. So you see how we had to install all new components just to address one valve. So good effort by everybody. Unfortunately, it was in a tough location, so it also involved a lot of time and coordination with both traffic and suppliers. So it took a couple days to do. We did it at night, a lot of hand digging, a lot of other utilities in there. There's duct banks, gas lines, everything in there. So, but that's all done. It's all patched in the intersection, and we'll pursue final restoration over the coming weeks to month.
Yeah, I just want to add, it was, Mike and staff, they did a tremendous job figuring out how to get in here. They spent the first night digging the area just to confirm what was out there compared to the mapping that we had. I'm sure it was sort of smack dab in the middle of the intersection right up the roadway. It involved some shutdown, but we did it at night. We alerted all customers, so we didn't have any traffic issues because it was an evening work job. So the first night they dug it, saw exactly what they needed. The next day they assembled it as much as they could in the yard the next day, and then they went back the following night and essentially reopened the hole again and placed everything back in, and everything's worked out, so, great job by
It looks like there are 3 valves that you put in.
We put it back in, yeah, to support potential future work.
So there's 3 valves replacing the 1.
Yes, but there's, so we also have gone back since and cut out an older valve that one of these other 3 replaces. Because when we did this, unfortunately, another one broke. And it was leaking, so we had to address that, but we didn't put in a new valve. These valves support future rehabilitation going in each direction.
It was probably a dirt road when they put that in originally.
I was telling the guys, when they were putting gravel, and I said the last thing to bring gravel here was probably a mule. It was.
Great photographs in your report too. Yes. I think I drove through the intersection maybe the day after you completed it, and I noticed things. I said, something happened here. But I was just surprised that it was all buttoned up already and so forth, so very good. Colin, anything you want to report on?
Yeah, I just have a couple of updates on the ongoing capital improvement projects. The 2025 one with Boyle Fogarty, they have completed all the work in Warren other than the asphalt restoration. So all the water main has been installed, all the pipes from the water treatment plant have been cut and capped, all the valves and tees, and then there was a service renewal for 471 Child Street. So that's done until final paving, and then they moved over to the Bristol scope of the work. They started installing the water main September 17th, and before that they put everyone on temporary bypass that needed to be transferred over. And the location for the fire hydrant was determined and approved by Bristol Fire Department. It's right near 47 Cunningham. As far as Ducon's project, they actually started milling today with their subcontractor, Narragansett Improvement Company. So they're going to be doing milling today and tomorrow and starting paving next week.
That's, where are they milling today? I saw trucks going very which way?
They started off on Wood Street. They had to do 2 mill and overlay patches for 2 service renewals over there. And then 262 Hope Street, they had to do just like a curb to center line patch there for the Cole apartments. And then there's a stretch that was curb to curb from 895 Hope Street going north, I believe, to 1030 Hope Street. I'm not sure exactly, but it's a...
Yeah, there was a lot of activity going there.
Yes, there was.
I drove through it and then made the mistake of driving back through it again.
Yeah.
But that must be the state doing that.
No, it's
Is it the town?
well, as far as the police details.
No, but no, the work that's going on Hope Street.
That was Narragansett, subcontractor of Ducon.
Oh, okay.
And they had the Bristol police as the police details.
Yeah. That's the question I had the last time we were talking about police details. A long time ago, I remember that a lot of the agencies had these flag highway safety training programs for their own people to try to substitute for police. Do they still do that at all, or is that not allowed?
We train, everybody is a trained flag person, all our utility operators are. But we're not allowed to utilize our staff as flag person unless a detail can't be filled by the police. So we have to go through that path first. And it's usually always filled.
Thank you. Any other questions for the staff? Move on to finances. Dan.
Well, let's see, we're halfway through the year. This is the point in time where I start getting on this because everything doesn't fluctuate too much other than month to month. You'll see some fluctuations in there. All right, so if we look at August versus August, we see that revenue is higher by about 7.8%. That's just consumption being higher along with the rate increase compared to 2024. The expenses for August aren't much more expensive, just $5,600. The three biggest things in there are really the increase in professional fees. A lot of that was just some legal invoices in August, resolving one big issue. There's no invoices last August, legal invoices. Computer expense increased just a little bit due to some timing and some maintenance costs, and those increases were offset just by a little decrease in operations maintenance expense. There was some paving costs in August 2024, and there was really no paving costs, this year. So we go through August. This is where stuff will start being a little monotonous for the rest of the year. Revenue for the year is 2.64% higher. That's due to obviously the rate increase, an increase in the billing since we got rid of those last handful of monthly bills and turned them into quarterly. The expenses increased 5.7%. The big three in there were professional fees. Again, this is the same information as last month. We had some, North Farm and Providence Water Docket stuff that was this year. The audit fees are a little bit higher this year versus the last year. And we had some engineering fees this year, I think related to hydraulic modeling that we didn't have last year. Purchase service water's up almost 41,000. And Steve discussed that water's up a little bit. And operation maintenance expenses higher due to some landscaping, on the concrete Legos that they bought for the yard there, and that maintenance of mains maintenance payment that we made to reimburse Barrington. I think we did that in June or July, so that's in there. Page 6, actual versus budget. We're in good shape. We're over budget revenue, 8.78%. And this is just the result of usage exceeding the budgeted amount for the period. Expenses are under budget as well, 7.09%. The three biggest items under budget were employee benefits, computer expense, and purchased water. Employee benefits are lower. The health insurance costs came in lower than what we budgeted at. Again, when we work on the budget, we don't have final health insurance premiums, so it's a little bit of an estimate there. Computer expense is lower, primarily due to some software maintenance and equipment being lower than budgeted so far. And the purchased water is lower due to consumption being lower than what was budgeted. And we'll see consumption on page 7 and 9. 7 through 9, that shows the dollars billed and gallons delivered. We have a slight increase in billings of just under 1%, and there's a decrease in consumption of 3.85%. And the difference largely is the rate increase. We did recover pretty nice for the month of August. We had 5.2 million gallons. It's 5.2 million gallons more than we did last August, so that's helpful. Page 10 has the trust fund report, which has a debt service ratio. It is down slightly from June. It's at 10.25%. And then page 11 shows the pension summary report. It shows for the month of August, there's a slight increase of just under $18,000 due to unrealized gains and contributions exceeding the fees and disbursements. And for the month, it ended up being $3,928,000.
Any questions for Dan?
I think I do have, I also have that trust, the OPEB trust in there as well. Just as information only. And that balance is just over $2 million for the OPEB.
In an earlier conversation that I had with the director, he pointed out that there was a major water user in our area in Bristol, a fish processing company.
Our third or fourth, depending on the year, biggest user. So luckily, consumption's down a little bit.
They're shut down.
Yeah, it hasn't really hit us hard yet because it kind of slowed down maybe, I don't know, May or June, but, going forward,
Building's empty.
yep. They had no usage the last couple of months, minimal.
They moved to New Bedford.
Yeah. So that will impact like the rest of the year and going
That's on
forward.
Gooding and Naomi also.
It's
On Gooding?
It's Broad, 16 Broad Common Road.
Oh, it's on Broad, oh, okay.
Galilean seafood. And they
Because one of the things that
were concerned about ice is what I was told.
I was looking at the gallons delivered over the 10-year period that you provide. And for the 10-year period, 6 of the years had a decrease from the previous year. And overall, it seems that consumption or gallons delivered has gone down quite a lot, maybe 14% or something like that. Didn't do the calculations, I just looked at the numbers now, but, and I immediately asked, why is that happening? And I didn't know about the seafood shop closing. That certainly would have a major impact here. And again, as you said, the numbers aren't really showing that yet. But I'm wondering, what is actually going on in Bristol County? Is the population leaving? I don't think so. And is the makeup of our users changed drastically even over this 10-year period of time? As a resident of the area, I haven't seen much of that. The college has certainly grown. And some other people conserving more than they ever did before. There was a period of time way back in ancient history that John could tell you about when people would get off the Bristol County water system and put in their own wells. And I still see some of those wells around, but most of the time that was for watering lawns and things of that sort. But I am wondering about these, not what, I believe the numbers, but I'm just wondering what is going on behind the scenes.
If you look, I have that, it's squished between the year total and the year-to-date total. It has like, for 2025, minus 0.21%, 2024 is minus 0.9. I mean, from 2021 through say 2025, since the last full year,
Right.
they're tweaking down like just under 1% a year. I did the math at one point in time,
Yeah.
probably like 0.5 or 0.6% from that period of time. You had that big high in 21 and then it dropped down in 22. So it looks like, and even if you go back now to 2019, it's like creeping down like a half to 0.75% consumption every year. I know when I talked to Joe about it, Joe thinks some of it is, as the older population is moving out and the younger people, you're replacing all the fixtures and the toilets and all this other stuff.
Right.
That's contributing to some of it too.
Right, and that the building code for low flush toilets was done in the early 90s. And I always wondered about how often do people change their bathroom fixtures to go from a 5-7 gallon per flush toilet to something that's 1.6
When it breaks.
When it breaks, exactly. But, so maybe that's what we're seeing, but it'd be interesting to look at this from a customer viewpoint, or categories, the categories of different types of customers, but in any case.
Would it help to have a trend line graph as opposed to the columns?
I mean, I can, his consumption
Yeah,
one,
I think he-
purchases a trend line one, I can't remember.
Well, I provide an annual trend line each year for the annual report.
Right, I didn't know if, on a month-to-month
Yeah.
basis, if that makes a difference. So, as opposed to rattling off the different minute, the percentages, you can see it. It's,
Well, we're thinking this
coming
month
left to right.
will be, September should be better than last September. Joe's got some preliminary numbers and he's thinking probably in the ballpark of a few million more gallons, sold in September. Some of that will be billed obviously till October, November, maybe a little.
I've
bit
shut
in
my
December.
sprinkler system off, so you're not getting it from me.
Well, we had a cool September
Yeah.
and it's been just wet enough, but maybe people haven't had the water.
I'm sure it's too early to tell with the university, but somebody told me university enrollment's down.
Oh, yeah?
They took a big whack.
Huh.
As a matter of fact, they went through and they took care of staff.
So that's interesting.
The-
But again, if
that's part of the-
that's sort of,
But
the next report will show that.
Yeah, but they're biggest water user down there. The university is, and their international students have dropped drastically.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Excuse me, Bob, did the hotel in Bay get approved or not?
I don't know.
I think there's one more
I think
hearing.
There's still bantering on it.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next item on the agenda is board member town council reports. Anybody have anything to report regarding their town council? Nope? Okay, the next item is on the agenda is properties committee, and Bob will be making a presentation. But just so this could be confusing, because it's on the agenda 3 times if you just count them. And we have the properties committee is going to make a recommendation. We're going to go into executive session after their item, and that topic is up for discussion in executive session. We're then coming out of executive session, and it says on the agenda, item 9, board vote on course of action for former plant buildings. So we have three different parts of the meeting here that we're going to be involved with the properties committee and the buildings. And Ned, and you can formally identify yourself when it's appropriately. My thinking in moving in public input into item 7 was that after they make their recommendations, we're not going to be taking a vote on that. There may be some discussion here, but I suspect most of that discussion will go into executive session. So once the recommendations are made and discussion has or hasn't happened, I'll turn to you as the public tonight and ask for public input or questions. I might not answer them at this point because we're going to go into executive session, and then you find out the result of those discussions when the board takes the vote in open session in item 9. So,
We wouldn't necessarily disclose the discussions, but
right,
yeah.
right. Okay. Mr. Martin.
We met on September 11th. Myself, Dave, and Chris. I think Ron was there, and I don't remember who else, and Rich. We reviewed where we were regarding the 2 buildings, the small one I'll call it the small one and the larger one, which was mixing, I guess it was. Consensus at that time, we felt that we gave the public a sufficient amount of time and a request for proposal to which there were no responses. So then, following that discussion, we got together and said the best thing for BCWA is to eliminate the buildings. So as we go into the executive session, people can go into more of that. So right now, that's the property committee position. Eliminate the buildings.
I'm trying to remember, was there an additional thought added to that by Chris at the very end? I may be wrong.
No, you gotta preserve the historically architectural features.
Right.
To be determined.
Yeah, whatever that was, like the...
Right, we were going to determine what architectural, and I'm paraphrasing, it's not specific.
We also said that we were going to ensure that the results of this would go to the Warren Council to tell them and keep them informed of what the progress is.
Okay. Any questions, comments at this time by the board? Hearing none. Hearing none, I'd ask for public comment. And if you want to formally identify yourself, who you represent.
May I sit there?
Sure. And we may limit your time, so
I may limit my time.
sounds like plan.
My name is Ned Connors. I'm an historical preservation consultant with a 35-year specialty in industrial and engineering, historic industrial and engineering properties. And I've been involved with about $1 billion worth of rehab of industrial properties, like Tourist, you know, an old marginally used or vacant building that has been brought back to life, availing itself of the tax, historical preservation tax credit in the process. I have a question, first of all. I noticed that there was some work right in front of the building. Were you finally able to effect the cutoff so that building is isolated now?
Completely.
Okay, great. Great. I want to let you know that the community really appreciates it. It's been almost 3 years now since the preservation community has been involved with our concern and our affection for these buildings. And I think you've been very gracious in listening to us. I have some thoughts on why there were crickets for the RFP that was put out. To me, it was not really a request for proposals. It was a request for discussion. You know, as I read the RFP over and over again, what it was really saying is, we're not selling it. You know, what we're going to do is we want to sit down with you and we want to get a sense of your financial viability, whether and what reasonable amount of time you could do it, whether the use would be appropriate for being cheek to jowl with a 24/7 water operation, all of those things. The problem that I see is that it was buried in a public utilities bid page, and that is simply not how commercial and industrial property is marketed. I think it was a good effort, it was a well-intentioned effort, but I had a long talk with I'm friends with Paula Silva, who is a very active in residential buying and selling. I mean, she's a real estate agent for residential properties. And she was suggesting that we sit down with a person who actually buys and sells and markets industrial and commercial properties. That the lingua franca of commercial and industrial real estate is LoopNet. And it immediately exposes a property to a national and even international audience. And with all due respect, I just don't think that somebody would go to the Bristol County Water Authority website to look for, I want to buy a building, or I want to purchase lease to purchase arrangement with the building. With the Water Authority. I don't think it works that way. Davison Bolster, who has been here for a number of meetings, said, why didn't we just put a sign out front? Commercial property, you know, inquiries, call this number, how many acres, how many buildings, how many square feet. People go to the Bristol County Water Authority website, in my opinion, not to buy land or buildings, but to maybe sell you something, or you've got a used truck that you want to sell. And they would go to I don't think something as sizable as these 2, possibly 3 buildings, and what is being mentioned here in the RFP as a 4-acre lot, which means the entire triangle. I just don't think that that's where people would go, and are not getting any response whatsoever. I think says less about the potential for interest in adaptive reuse and historical preservation of buildings that the public has been paying for since 1883. I think it speaks much more to the fact that it might not have been the right venue. And if we could put this on LoopNet, we might get a very different response. Warren Heritage Foundation has an annual gala, and they make quite a bit of money. And they parcel it out every year to what they consider to be viable, good, great causes for Warren. And I hope I'm not overstating my welcome here with speaking. They've got some money set aside to help, to assist in the marketing. I think if I were with Bristol County Water Authority, I really would want to get involved in something like that. However, I would be interested, if I can speak for you guys, I would be interested in having a person who is in fact a commercial and industrial real estate broker take a look at the whole process, take a look at the RFP that was put out, which I think was really a request for let's sit down and talk, much more so. I remember I was on a phone call with Steve and I said something about selling the building and Steve said, no, it's not what it says. And I went back and reread the RFP and it clearly does not say that this is about buying. Well, ultimately it has to be. Ultimately it has to be about selling the property. Because you guys don't want it forever. So I'm submitting that we please consider that. I don't think we should rush off and say, let's demolish the buildings because we made a good faith effort from June to August in the RFP. I really do think the RFP, for all its good intentions, probably was not appropriate for what we're trying to do here. The last thing I want to say is that we've already reduced the electrical service from, I think, 5,000 a month to 15 to 0. It's completely cut off now. We don't have to heat the buildings because there's no standing water now. So they're sitting there, they're beloved, they're not going to fall down. The 1907 building is in remarkably good condition. The 1883 building, the little one up front, needs some love. I do think we have some time. It's considerably less debit, on the debit side of things right now. And ultimately, the adaptive reuse of these buildings will mean you don't have to shell out the 75 to 100,000 that was noted, I believe I'm not sure which study it was, for the demolition of the 1907 building, or would that have been 100,000 just for the demolition of the 1883 building? Have we even got a ballpark idea of what demolition of the 1907 building would be?
We've been carrying a budget of $1 million.
So $1 million. For remediation, demolition, ground, leveling off the property, the whole thing. That would be a savings, a significant savings to the Water Authority to just, let's try to market this correctly. This may amuse you, but I used to be in advertising, doing dreary graphic design. And the Providence Journal used to be full of ads like this in the Sunday business section. Commercial property for sale with a little picture, basic specs. And just for the hell of it, I dummied up just pulling information from the RFP. And we really don't do this anymore because LoopNet has superseded this kind of, if you go into Projo on Sunday right now, first of all, the newspaper's this thin, but you don't really see ads like this anymore, but they were very, very common 15, 20 years ago. But to me, this is the back of the napkin thing that we could do, of just simply getting the information out on LoopNet. We don't have to specify a price. We don't even have to necessarily specify the parcel. We could say that all of these matters are up for discussion. And if we were to bring in a commercial or industrial real estate advisor, Warren Heritage Foundation, I believe, I'll double check with them, but when I last talked to Sandy, who was here at the last properties subcommittee meeting, they think that would be a really great contribution to the town. So, I'm done.
Okay,
I'm glad another member of the public came. I was feeling like John the Baptist here, but I out in the desert.
could you identify yourself for our record? I'm sorry?
Paul Rocha, sir. R-O-C-H-A.
And you're with,
I'm
Just an
a
interested
concerned
citizen? just an interested citizen, or are you with an organization?
I'm sorry, what was the name of that?
Are you with an organization, or?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just a citizen.
Okay, good.
Mr. Chairman, the three Warren members would have a different outlook maybe than the other 6 members. But he just acknowledged that this has been going on for 3 years. There's no doubt that people out there know that we've been dickering with this proposal one way or another. So,
Well, I think that
as much as I believe in historic protection and things, I don't know how much longer we can go on.
Yeah, but I think the idea here, John, was I understand your sentiment and thoughts. It was to get Ned's comments and thoughts and ideas on the record for us to consider as we go into the executive session to make a decision. And I appreciate your time coming here tonight, and you certainly outlined some good thoughts, and it was very clear. I'd ask one thing, is could we get a copy of that from you?
Of the ad?
Yeah.
No, that's why I printed that. Let me give it to Steve. It won't win awards for graphic design.
That's okay. It's just,
But it was pretty much based on the old Projo
yeah, no,
type of ad.
yeah, I'm familiar with what you're talking about, but as we discuss this, that might come in handy. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
since you had it, right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. So with executive session,
We'll be going into executive session. I can't tell you how long that will take.
okay.
You're welcome to sit out in the hall, I guess.
Yeah. Smoke if you got them.
Not in the building.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
Before we do that? There was a pre-proposal meeting on June 18th. You chose not to come and express these views back then. There was a pre-proposal meeting as part of the RFP. You could have come and voiced your opinion or had questions about it.
If I wasn't submitting a proposal, I didn't see that it would be appropriate for me to come.
Well, there was an opportunity or to ask questions or to come to the meeting or,
Well, I know that now.
yeah, make that inquiry, yeah.
I didn't know it then. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for attending as well.
If we do wait around, would there be any benefit to us coming back after executive session? Or
There
would it
wouldn't be
just
any more,
to be
we
informed?
wouldn't be asking for any more input from you unless
Right.
the board decides something that I'm not thinking about. But you would hear the board vote on what course of action they want to take for the former plant buildings,
Yes.
as it says on the agenda. So if you want to, I don't know, but we've got other items on the agenda for the executive session, which could take a bit of time. And I'm not discouraging you from hanging around the hallway. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Motion to enter executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-582 and 42-46-585.
Have a motion, do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor going into executive session?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, we're going into executive session.
Well, no, now we can.
Cameras on.
Okay.
Make a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're moving on to item 9, but let's see if Ned is still around, I think. Is anybody else here?
10 of them out there now.
Chicken scratch on the car.
Pitchforks.
Pulling people off the street.
No open.
It's all your cousins. I shouldn't say that, I don't know your cousins. Did they return?
Thank you for letting us know.
Okay. Moving on to item 9, board vote on course of action for former plant buildings.
Motion to table a course of action until a report is done on the property.
Second.
Any other discussion on this? No, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, the next scheduled meeting of the board is on October 23rd. We will not be in costume that night. Come as you are, though.
For yourself.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
One thing,
Second.
we had talked about having a finance committee meeting, which has not yet taken place, is that something we want to
We
do?
can try to do that between now and then. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
And we're adjourned.